Joining us here for Community Worship Center Family Connections. I think that's the official title, right?
Oh, yeah, it's what
Okay.
we've been
You
using
usually
for a year or
you
so
usually
now,
do the
so
intro, and so
I know.
I don't know if I have those terms down. I'm here with Pastor Ken. Good to have you here tonight. And let's do a little sermon recap of what you had, your message was this last Sunday. So, be still and know that I am God. From Psalms 46.
Mm-hmm.
And, even though this is a wall plaque and that's a saying that we're familiar with, I like that you read the whole psalm. And, sometimes we take these verses and we don't really see them in the context of the whole
Yep.
passage, or in this case, the song. And I was just really struck as you were reading that, just even starting with verse 1,
Mm-hmm.
about God as our
Our
refuge and
and
strength and
stronghold.
ever-present help in time of need. Just that starting off there then can help us understand, be still and know that I am God. As you said, it's not just, let's take some quiet time. It is, He's my refuge.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what I'm dealing with, He's the one I'm going to go to. And I can trust that not only He is God, but that He knows. And in my anxiousness or worry about whatever's going on,
Mm-hmm.
I can rest in Him, knowing that He's that refuge.
Yeah, I was really, in studying for that message and just reading up on it, and I went to I always do. I go to various different sources, but there was that underlying theme that this really isn't just, sit and contemplate. This was really, and they all made the same point that in the context of what he's talking about there, it really is quit. You don't have to fight.
Right.
It's not your battles.
Mm-hmm.
And God was really just that whole idea of a fortress. Even was once you're inside of it, that's your sanctuary. You don't fight when you're inside of it. It's your protection.
Right. Well, and so this comes from Psalm 46, verse 10.
Mm-hmm.
But in reading that too, there are statements in verse 7 and then after this verse in verse 11 that says, the Lord is with us.
Yeah.
And not only that, but then goes on and kind of touches on the Hebrew understanding of that about the God of Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
But He's our refuge. He's with us.
Yeah.
Be still and know that I am God.
Yeah.
He is with us.
Yeah.
Just the confirming of the verses around that then point to that context of,
Yep.
It's not just contemplative. It is, this is where I need to find my surrender. So then you went on and just talked a little bit about be still and the concept of that being let go,
Mm-hmm.
and a surrender, and really from the standpoint of the distractions. If we're really gung-ho about trying to grab our weapons and let's go tackle the enemy, then the distraction is my focus is just on the enemy, not on who God is and what He can do.
Yeah, and one of the things that I started mulling this over before Sunday because God's kind of been stirring this up in me, and it's still going on. But we're very used to hearing the Ephesians, Ephesians 6, the armor of God, and
Mm-hmm.
we get this idea that we're supposed to put it on and go out and attack.
Right.
And God has really been challenging me, going, why do you want to pick a fight with somebody who's defeated already? And why are you picking fights with people? Because that's not the issue.
Right.
They're not the problem. The problem is the enemy. I've already defeated him. If you insist on going and picking a fight with somebody, I'll sit back and watch you.
Right.
But we don't understand the fact that Satan is, if we pick a fight with him, he is strong. He's got thousands of years of knowing us and so on like that. And God just says, it is really impressing upon me that it's folly. It's dumb.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. And just like you
Yeah.
said or showed in the message, where my son was throwing ping pong balls at
He
you.
loved that
Yeah,
too.
I know.
No.
He went home and was like, "That's the greatest message ever. I got to hit Ken with ping pong balls." But just the the picture of that while we're trying to do something that we know God has led us to do, but when there's a distraction, we step aside from what God has us to do, and we think we're supposed to, with our own understanding, try
Yeah.
to fix the situation, and yet what it really is just simply a distraction.
Yep. And the more I think of it, Satan doesn't want you dead.
Right.
He prowls about, and that whole we keep getting that picture of him, and he's trying to kill us. And he doesn't want us dead. He wants us spiritually dead.
Sure.
I'm because if we're not doing what God wants us to do, again, it goes down to are our actions drawing people to or pushing people from? And I just more and more, God is just really impressing upon me that every action that I take, everything that I do, has an impact on someone,
Right.
somewhere.
Well, it just reminded me of Revelation, where Satan is clearly understanding his time is limited.
Yep.
And so, like, his objective is just to say, if I can just get God's people to waste time, then I can make the best of my time. And so to distract and really eliminate then the effectiveness of God working through us is really his best strategy.
Yep. Well, and we know, we hear this as men. We hear this all the time and say this, you do anything to my family, you're crossing a line, and so on like that, And Satan knows that if he wants to wound God's heart, there is only one weakness, and I use that term, but I don't mean weakness. But if you want to hurt God, break his heart. And when Satan is able to turn us away and distract us and have us fall short of everything that God wants for us, I believe God sits there and he weeps because he looks down at us and said,
Yeah. Yeah, I was even reminded listening to a song today about with the verse Jesus wept, and not so much where it was about Lazarus, but where he was looking over Israel,
Yeah.
and just recognizing the condition that they have now been in, because they were looking for something and distracted over here, and yet what they needed was right in front of them.
Yeah.
And they just really had a hard time embracing that.
Yeah.
And that was breaking Jesus's heart, just to say your very redemption, your salvation is here, and yet we know you're going to be so distracted that you're not even going to embrace it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I agree that just that's Satan's best way to get back at God.
Yep.
Is to just get his kids to not pay attention.
Yep.
You were also just talking about, though, that surrender isn't so much just letting everything slide. It's still standing for our beliefs and standing against injustice and those types of things. And yet, in that stance, it doesn't mean we have to get into this engagement, these quarrels, the fights that are ultimately, once again, going to pull us from the focus that God has for us.
Yeah, and it's for me more and more it's becoming a question of which battles and what do I want to stand on. And there was a time where you would stand on principles or this or that. I'm finding more and more that there's only one thing I'm going to stand on, and that's the truth of the gospel. That's the only thing worth standing on. You cannot. I don't need to debate that with you. I don't. I can discuss it, but I just get this sense that the more and more the whole argument, the whole adversarial thing, we don't know who the next person is that is going to come across the path of the person we're talking to.
Sure.
And we really do need to realize that we're always supposed to be on mission. And we could be planting a seed, we could be watering a seed, but we better not be digging it up and exposing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think just that's probably the main point of back to be still and know that I am God. Understand that while we are called to be a part of this, it's on God's terms. This is Him doing this. This is us engaging with His mission, not going, well, I preach the gospel to you. You're going to reject it. Okay, well, you're worthless then, or some sort of behavior that would cause someone to just say, well, I never want to talk to a Christian again.
Yep.
And recognize just how damaging that could be.
Yep. And I really do think that, we're talking about God who is all power, created the universe, the heavens and the earth. It's not up to us to win an argument. It's not up to us to convince somebody. It's not up to us to defend God. I forget who it was that said that. It was a really great message that I listened to once. But he said, do you really think God needs you to defend Him?
Right.
He doesn't. He stands on His own truth, and all we can do is present it. And the best way to present it is through our own testimony of what He has done with us. So be still,
Right.
Learn what God is, understand Him, see what He does, experience Him, in other words, so that you know who He is, so then you can turn around and explain that to somebody. Because if you want to, I forget who I was talking to, but I said, in talking to somebody that you meet on the street or something like that, you can tell them all about what God did for Moses. You can tell them all about what God did for Jacob or for anybody like that. Or you can tell them about what He's done in your life. And you can do it with the passion and conviction that it is real.
Right. Because
You've experienced it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And that to me is what this is all about.
Yeah. And yet there again, to recognize, okay, there's a place for contemplation. We're not saying don't do that.
Nope.
But the psalm that we're referring to, or we get this verse from, is when things look like you're humanly not going to figure this out. You're as I've said in some of my messages, it exposes your human limitations.
Yep.
What are you going to do now? Where are you going to go with this? This verse says, take a break from trying to figure it out on your own terms. Come to me, surrender, know that I'm God, and I will walk you through this.
Yep.
I am your help in time of need. I'm right there with you. I'm that refuge, and you can count on me.
Yep.
Yeah,
definitely.
And so I just appreciate, some people might have known, I knew what be still and know that I'm God, what that means. But you even brought up a couple points of commentators saying, is this talking to Israel saying, hey, chill out, I got this? Is it God talking to the enemies saying, this is me coming at you, and you're about to see the fullness of what happens when you mess with my kids? But yet, either way, as you said, it's probably both, because God, when He acts, those that know Him see Him for who He is, and can bring their guard down and let God be God. And those that don't know Him all of a sudden get a taste of their human limitations and realize that the fear and the awe of who God is all of a sudden is the main experience at that point. And they really just, at that point, I'll drop my sword, I'm sorry, and back away.
Yep. And you know, that amazes me because, again, this was Old Testament when this was written, but I think it was a foreshadowing of what was to come. When you look at things in the New Testament now, um, you know, this whole idea of, you know, don't be anxious about tomorrow. It all relates back to this, that there's this constant thing that God is saying, you know, you just need to let me do. Um, and I think the other thing, and this, it tied so it was just amazing how the worship set and Marta's word that she had from God came in. And like I said, when I was sitting there listening to that song, and we talk about, you know, my father's house has many rooms, and I started thinking, we're his house. And this body of ours is not ours anymore. We're not the landlords, we're tenants. And so everything sort of tied into this whole idea of surrender. Be still, let God be God. And it just kind of blew me away on Sunday, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you and I have just talked about when we do these studies, you know, not only do we end up learning the most,
Yeah.
but it becomes an experience that does provide just that enthusiasm, that passion to want to share. Hey, this is what God has taught me through these situations. I just want to share that. And and as we've just mentioned here, that becomes then the the part that God wants for us. I want you to experience me and then go tell people about what that was.
Yep. And I'll be honest, almost all of the wall plaque series and the whole Think Differently series, it really is a series based on things I'm being convicted of.
Yeah.
I got to be honest about that. I mean, God is saying, you know, son, there's some things we need to work on here. And I get to share that with people so that maybe they can hear that and go, I'm going to avoid that.
Right. Yeah, and I obviously can relate with that very
Yep.
well too. But
Yep.
I guess just, you know, kind of wrapping this up is to say thank you for being vulnerable, to not only allowing God to kind of put you in the crucible and tighten the screws a little bit, but then also to be honest and vulnerable with the rest of us to say, here's what I'm learning. And I think it promotes other people to not only seek the Lord, but to be vulnerable when they seek the Lord.
Yeah.
And if there are things that they're truly, whether it's being convicted of or learning through some trials, when the lessons are learned, it just builds up to the point we want to share with other people. And that breeds community and connection and all those things, which is basically what we're talking about
Yep.
here.
It is.
So.
It really is. So.
Well, speaking of connection, we have a few announcements that we want to give to you guys. First of all, this Friday is our monthly worship night. And so that's going to be Friday the 19th, starting at 7 o'clock. So right here in the sanctuary, highly recommend that you just come here. For me, I know Friday nights, I can just say, oh, end of the week, I can sit back, I can let other people start singing, and I'll just come along and really allow God to pull me right into his presence.
Yep. And here's just a little hint for you that are watching. If you sit there and if on previous Friday nights you've gone, I know it's on tonight, but it's been a long week. I'm tired. I don't feel like going. I'll be honest. Every time this Friday comes up, I don't want to go at first.
Right. I feel the same way.
And I love it. Yeah. But I just, it's the end of the week and it's like, I'd rather stay home. And every time I've come out here, I am so glad that I've been here, and I leave with a completely different attitude. I am refreshed, and a lot of times I'm challenged. There's just all sorts of things that God does here on a Friday night.
Yeah, and really, I mean, there again, we invite you to come here for that very reason. But
It's not about listening to music.
Yeah, we want you to be inspired and uplifted by what worship can provide.
Yeah.
And sure, we can all just play a song, while we're sitting on the couch.
Yep.
But when you're in a room together and can worship together, there is something that is truly different in that experience. Once again, connection and community.
Yep. So.
Well, then the next morning.
The next morning. So I'm not going to stay up too late on Friday night
Don't
worship
stay up too late.
because on Saturday morning there is a men's breakfast here, and we have the privilege of having a speaker by the name of Vince Miller. Vince is an international speaker. He speaks on men's issues. He has a website that's dedicated to that, Resolute Men's Ministries. He does daily blogs that really are really good, and they're challenging. So
yeah, I haven't looked at those.
And so and it's free.
Oh,
We're going to do a goodwill offering.
Free is a fun word.
And we'll take a goodwill offering, but there is going to be a breakfast served, so we're going to feed you both physically, and then Vince will take care of feeding you spiritually. And I'm believing that if you come here and listen to this, you won't leave the same person that you were when you walked in.
That's pretty big words there. So, well, and not only that, but there again, we want you to be able to come. We want to make sure that we have everything that you would need. So we have RSVPs that we would like you to be able to give us a head count. So I know there's going to be a handful of people from other churches as well. And so
definitely.
if we can get a good idea of the men who are coming. But not only that, but if you hear this, please invite other people, other men, to show up. Because, like you said, the expectation is that through whatever God has planned, whatever Vince is going to say, whatever the connections and the conversations look like, we're expecting that God does something truly unique. And as Ken, you said, we're going to leave here different. There's going to be something that we will not only have taken that can inspire us, but that we can really understand that was God, that was Him talking, and I can not only step into that, but that becomes a ministry, a testimony.
Just Vince being here is a God story in itself, and you know about that. So, and that's why I'm saying this just blows me away that we have Vince coming here for this event. And Vince was so on board about coming up and doing this, and I'm just excited to see what God has put on his heart, because he's coming here in obedience. So
Coming to Sandstone. Like, that reminds me of Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Sandstone? I don't know, but Vince is going to come here, and so we'll see. So
and one last thing, just a little quick. I just want to put in a real quick plug. Sunday mornings, hope to see you here at church at 10:30. And if you'd like a chance to have a coffee and a bit of good conversation and dig into some things a little bit deeper, our Empower Hour, we are looking at boundaries. I can't begin to explain or describe how deep this is and how meaningful it is, and how it's impacting people. And so
so the last couple of weeks we've been talking about being responsible for yourself and managing yourself. This week we're going to shift that into being able to identify your needs. There are some basic needs that I think we can agree upon, but like that class is really to take a look at those needs and then ask the question, are you getting those needs met? So we're going to be talking about that specifically this Sunday. So hopefully that gives a little plug, a little intrigue, so that you would be able to come 9:30 Sunday mornings. We can engage in that conversation.
All righty.
Very good. All right, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We hope that this was at least somewhat uplifting.
I hope so.
Yeah, good. You're going to be preaching this next week again?
I am.
Yeah, more wall plaque sayings?
I'm thinking so. I'm thinking it might be the last one.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll take over after that, because I got some stuff from First Peter that I'm just kind of, yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. So
Cool.
So good.
Well, maybe
All right.
what I do will set you up then.
Yeah, probably.
Alrighty.
So yes, join us this Sunday. This Friday for worship.
Friday. This Saturday.
Men this Saturday, and then Sunday, both 9:30 in Power Hour and 10:30 for our regular service. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you later.
God bless.